Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking an immersive look into a really fascinating stack of recent sources. They all seem to converge on this central theme. These rapid interconnected shifts happening across the global economy and the geopolitical landscape. Our mission, as always, is to try and cut through some of the noise, pull out the most important bits of knowledge, and sort of connect the dots. We're looking at finance, national security, tech, even social tensions, things that might seem separate but often aren't. And the material for this deep dive is, well, it's incredibly diverse. We've got business reports, international policy updates, even some quite interesting domestic disputes. It gives us this panoramic view of what's unfolding. So, okay, let's dig in and see what stands out as we navigate these shifts together. Right, kicking things off, let's jump straight into finance and investment. Things are definitely evolving there. New models popping up, established players facing new challenges. One of the most intriguing things, I think, is this rise of what people are calling pre-plan venture capital. Now, this isn't just early stage investing as we know it.
It's a whole new wave. Investors backing founders before they even have a solid idea or a product or even, registered company.
Yeah, it's really pushing the boundary of early.
Exactly. It seems to be about spotting raw potential right at the very beginning. We're seeing it grow fast in areas like AI, synthetic biology, clean tech, the really cutting edge stuff. But what are these investors actually betting on? If there's no plan, no product, is it just reputation, track record?
Largely that, yeah. Reputation, track record, maybe their network. But it's also, I think, about the founder's perceived ability to find the great idea eventually. What's fascinating here is, well, it's this fundamental shift in what's being valued. It's almost entirely human potential over, concrete plans or assets.
And the flip side, supporters say it fuels fast innovation, catches winners early.
True. But critics, they definitely warn it could inflate startup hype even more. Increases risk, obviously, and you risk pushing money into ideas or maybe just founders that might never actually materialize into anything solid. It's a high-trust, high-risk game.
Interesting. Okay, moving from those really early bets to more established industries. There's a big acquisition making waves in the UK. Advent International, a huge global private equity firm, has agreed to buy Spectrus.
Right, the engineering and instrumentation company.
Yeah, for $4.4 billion. That's a big number. Spectrus makes these, super precise measurement tools for industrial automation, R&D.
Critical stuff for advanced manufacturing and research.
So what does this specific deal tell us about the bigger picture for British companies right now?
Well, it's definitely indicative of a larger trend. We're seeing UK-listed firms, particularly in industrial and sort of tech-adjacent sectors, becoming really attractive targets for foreign buyers.
Why is that?
Two main reasons, really. First, their valuations are often relatively low compared to, say, U.S. or some European peers. And second, many of them have strong intellectual property portfolios, valuable patents, unique tech.
So it's value plus innovation potential.
Exactly. And it's another example, frankly, of UK assets being sort of snapped up in this post-Brexit landscape. Global capital sees an opportunity.
Which raises those questions about, national assets and global capital flows.
It certainly does. The long-term strategic implications. That's the key question.
Okay, and sticking with global finance, but shifting focus a bit. Vanguard, one of the absolute giants. They're making a pretty big move in Europe, slashing fees on a whole range of their funds.
A significant cut across the board.
And this comes as European investors are, well, increasingly demanding those low-cost passive options, right?
Absolutely. The demand is definitely there. And local competitors, especially smaller ones, they just struggle to match the scale of Vanguard or BlackRock.
So what's Vanguard's aim here? Just grab more market share?
Primarily, yes. Boost market share, appeal to those price-sensitive savers, pension funds. It's a volume game for them.
And analysts are saying this could trigger a broader fee war.
It certainly could. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a clear sign of intense competition driving outcomes that are, well, good for consumers, right? Lower fees.
Yeah, seems good for investors.
Definitely. But it also puts massive pressure on those established legacy business models in Europe, particularly firms with higher costs. It could be an existential challenge for some.
A real shakeup then. Okay, now let's hop across the Atlantic. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, they've been busy. They recently repealed several financial compliance rules.
Yeah, rules affecting smaller players mostly. Things around disclosure, record-keeping, third-party audits.
And Wall Street firms, reportedly, called it a much-needed rollback. They argue it cuts bureaucracy, lets capital markets, operate more freely.
That's the industry line, certainly. Less red tape is generally welcomed by business.
But what's the other side? critics must have concerns.
Oh, absolutely. The main worry is about a potential lack of transparency and maybe greater systemic risk down the line, especially in those really fast-moving, sometimes opaque sectors like crypto or private equity.
So it's that classic push-pull, isn't it? Less red tape for business versus more protection for the public or the system.
Precisely. It reflects this broader shift, or maybe tension, towards deregulation under the current U.S. administration. It's a fundamental philosophical debate playing out. Capital formation versus investor protection.
Okay, so whether it's new ways to invest, big takeovers, fee wars, or deregulation, the financial world is clearly in flux. Let's zoom out now to the geopolitical stage. Interestingly, some similar themes of transparency and trust pop up here too. Starting in Eastern Europe, Lithuania, they're making quite a strong call for more transparency within NATO.
Asking the alliance to be more open.
Yeah, more open with the public about military operations, threats, even how the budget's allocated. Why now? And what's the core issue for NATO?
Well, the why now is pretty clear, given the context. Russia's actions, the war in Ukraine, it's put eastern flank countries like Lithuania on high alert. They're ramping up military spending significantly.
Right.
And their argument is basically, if we're asking our citizens to support higher defense budgets, potentially for the long haul, we need to be more transparent. Secrecy and vague messages make it hard to build that essential democratic support.
So transparency builds trust, trust underpins security.
That's the core message, yes. But for NATO, it's this constant balancing act, isn't it? Operational security versus the democratic need for public understanding and buy-in. How much can you reveal without compromising operations or giving adversaries useful information? It's a tough line to walk.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still on national strategies. Let's talk tech races. The UK government just announced a major investment in quantum computing. Over $500 million. That's a lot.
It's a huge bet, yeah, a very significant sum.
What's the strategic goal? Why quantum specifically?
The aim is simple. Put the UK at the forefront of this next-generation technology. Quantum computing, using quantum mechanics for processing, it has the potential to be revolutionary.
How so?
Well, it could solve problems that are just impossible for today's computers. Think drug discovery, material science, financial modeling, cryptography.
Breaking current encryption.
That's one of the big national security implications, yes. So this funding going to academic research, startups, university industry partnerships, it's about building that ecosystem. It's definitely part of Britain's post-Brexit strategy to compete globally in science and innovation. A high-stakes play for future economic and, frankly, strategic advantage.
A £500 million bet on the future of computing. Wow. Now, on a more immediately worrying note on the international security front, Iran. International nuclear inspectors are apparently still trying to locate over 400 kilograms of enriched uranium.
Yes, material that Iran has reportedly stockpiled but hasn't properly declared or accounted for under monitoring agreements.
And the big concern, obviously, is that this missing material could potentially be used, down the line for nuclear weapons development.
That's the core fear, absolutely. 400 kilograms is a significant quantity.
Iran claims it's stored securely, but
they haven't provided the concrete evidence or the necessary access to key sites that inspectors need to verify that.
And the impact.
Well, it adds serious tension to the already stalled nuclear negotiations. It erodes trust significantly. What's really critical here is it underscores the absolute importance of transparency and verification in international security agreements. When that breaks down, especially with nuclear materials, the risk of miscalculation and escalation just goes way up. It's a dangerous development.
Okay, so we've seen these big national strategies playing out globally. Let's pivot now to more localized issues, but ones that still echo nationally. Domestic pressures, policy fights. First up, Starbucks. There's this ongoing conflict, right? Unionization efforts versus the company.
Yes, a lot of organizing activity across the U.S.
And the latest wrinkle is this aggressive nationwide hiring campaign by Starbucks. Organizers are claiming it's a tactic.
Their claim is that the hiring spree is basically a strategy to flood the stores with new, non-unionized employees to dilute the union's support and overwhelm the organizing drive.
And Starbucks says?
Starbucks counters that they're simply responding to rising customer demand and normal staffing needs. Standard business practice, they'd argue.
So who do you believe? Or rather, What does this reflect more broadly?
Well, it reflects this wider fight we're seeing across the U.S. service industry. You've got low wages, unpredictable hours fueling this surge in grassroots organizing, and then you have corporate countermeasures like potentially strategic hiring or other tactics. It's a real ground-level struggle between labor seeking more power and corporate strategy trying to maintain control. It's playing out coffee shop by coffee shop.
Now, here's an interesting one, the intersection of politics, branding, and business. Trump Mobile.
Ah, yes, the new mobile carrier project linked to Donald Trump.
Exactly. Planning to use a Florida-based telecom network, pitching itself as made in America.
The appeal is clearly aimed at politically conservative consumers, positioning it as a patriotic alternative to, quote-unquote, big tech telecoms.
But can it actually work? Is it a viable business, or is it mostly political branding?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Analysts are definitely skeptical about how independent or secure this network really is, and scaling up to compete with the giants like Verizon or AT&T, that's a massive challenge. The infrastructure alone is incredibly complex and expensive.
So more than just a catchy name needed.
Absolutely. And it's already sparking legal and regulatory scrutiny, partly because of those strong political overtones and some aggressive marketing claims. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a fascinating case study of political branding trying to create consumer loyalty in a sector defined by complex technology and infrastructure realities. Can the Made in America promise hold up? We'll see.
Okay, finally, let's look at a UK domestic battle with potentially wide implications. Thames Water.
The big reservoir plan in Oxfordshire.
That's the one. It's facing a legal challenge now from environmental and community groups.
Right. Strong local opposition.
Their arguments are what? Damage to ecosystems, displacing residents.
Yes, and also that the whole project is based on potentially outdated projections of water usage. They question if it's truly necessary given the environmental cost.
And Thames Water's defense.
They insist it's absolutely essential. They point to climate change, population growth, and argue this reservoir is crucial to prevent serious water shortages in the future for London and the Southeast.
So it's a classic local battle, but it raises these huge questions, doesn't it?
Definitely. It puts infrastructure planning, national water policy, and that whole balance between environmental protection and resource management right under the microscope.
A choice between immediate environmental worries and long-term resource security.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of the tough decisions the UK and many countries face with climate adaptation and resource pressures. Not an easy one.
Wow. Okay. We have certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From pre-plan, VC, and those European fee wars.
Right, through to NATO transparency debates and Iran's uranium stockpile concerns.
And then down to the ground level with Starbucks union fights, the Trump Mobile venture, and this major reservoir battle in the UK. It really does show how these seemingly separate news items, finance, geopolitics, domestic policy, are all, interconnected parts of this constantly shifting global picture.
The threads are definitely there if you look closely.
We hope this deep dive has helped you maybe cut through some of that noise, make sense of these developments a bit better, hopefully helping you stay informed and maybe even spot what might be coming next. So thinking about everything we've just explored, all these diverse pressures and ambitions, how do you think that recurring tension, the one between, say, innovation and regulation, or between transparency and secrecy, how might that continue to shape our world in ways we perhaps haven't even anticipated yet? Something to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep that curiosity flowing.